Now, you're one of the about to conduct one of the two trials in Australia of hydroxychloroquine and other drugs. Tell us what these trials will involve and what's the main purpose here. There's a bit of discussion here about treating symptoms as opposed to preventing infection in the first place.
There's a couple of trials looking at hydroxychloroquine and its ability to either prevent someone developing COVID-19 or trying to treat people who have got a form of COVID-19. The particular trial that's being run by the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute is one that's looking at prevention of COVID-19 in healthcare workers. So these are nurses and doctors and paramedics who are looking after people who have got COVID-19, and we're trying to protect them from getting the disease. There's other trials looking at using hydroxychloroquine to treat patients who have got disease and stopping them from progressing to developing severe disease.
So presumably in Australia there will be people put on prescriptions of the drug, and will you deliberately expose them to infection or just allow them to go about their work and see what transpires?
No, the point is very much to try and prevent them from getting infection when they're exposed during their normal work practices. So we've certainly have got no intention of exposing them other than through their normal work practices. So the drug is provided to them. They take it as they're going to work as a form of prevention.
Now, unsurprisingly, because of this pandemic, around the world there's a lot of people trying to do some pretty fast scientific and medical work on this, much faster perhaps than they ordinarily would do. We've had anecdotal, I suppose, or clinical untested results shared around the world by doctors who have been prescribing it. And there have been some smaller studies conducted in Europe and in China, some of them showing some promising results. Others are showing not much difference at all, whether you take hydroxychloroquine or not. What's your assessment of the current knowledge and from the clinical use of this drug around the world so far?
So presently there's been no data out around its use as a preventative agent, i.e. stopping people who are exposed from developing COVID-19. There's a tiny bit of evidence around its use to treat COVID-19, but it's very important that we're very keen to make it transparent to everyone around the trials that have been conducted and the pros and cons around those particular trials. So presently there hasn't been a robust testing of this drug in a clinical scenario. It's all what we would call ad hoc studies, looking at historical controls and or looking at the use of these drugs, given that's been prescribed by doctors, as I said, in an ad hoc way. So all of the trials that have gone to some form of publications have all stressed that a proper randomised controlled double-blind trial is required to test whether this drug works or not. I think that there's still a huge amount of confusion, and the only way to really solve it is through a proper randomised control trial. It would be bad to suggest that the drug works, and it would be equally bad to suggest the drug doesn't work until we've done the correct trials.
Exactly. Everybody's trying to catch up because of some of what's been reported. And, of course, when Donald Trump talks about miracle cures and whatever, he just excites other people to shoot it down in flames. What needs to be done is exactly what you're talking about. One thing that interests me when it comes to that, though, Professor, is that we know that a lot of people around the world have been on hydroxychloroquine. They had it prescribed for long periods. They take it routinely for rheumatoid arthritis or for lupus. Is there any way, have there been any attempts to check with all of those people? Because they're a living, breathing test case, aren't they, of people who have been on the drug for many years, to see whether many of those have actually contracted the virus?
There has been some publications around this One of the very difficult things is that they're only able to report on people who have developed COVID-19. So you don't know how many people who are taking hydroxychloroquine were prevented from developing COVID-19. So it's really very, very tricky unless you have a very controlled trial to make any conclusions about whether the drug does or doesn't work. In fact, I mean, as I said, it's nice to be transparent around all of these studies and for them all to be published and out there so people can gauge the data. But at the same time, we have to be incredibly careful around how this is all interpreted.
Absolutely. Now, when do you expect that you're going to have any results, worthy of sharing with the world from your trials?
So we're hoping that the trial will start in May, and we would hope that the trial would run for around about 6 to 8 months. So any individual healthcare worker would be taking the drug for 4 months whilst they're looking after people or being exposed to COVID-19 as part of their workplace. So hopefully not in the too distant future.